Environmentalists are vowing to turn out in force this Sunday in Washington in a last-ditch effort to stop the Keystone XL pipeline. They say U.S. President Barack Obama should not be easing the way for fossil fuels. Instead, doing more of what he's already doing, promoting renewable energy. It's this climate Canadian companies are finding especially attractive. As Duncan McCue explains, for them, south of the border, going green means making green.
On a rare sunny day in the Pacific Northwest, the solar panel business is booming. No Americans fretting here about the sluggish U.S. economy and job growth. At this solar manufacturer, annual sales have doubled, and the company is hiring.
I don't like to brag about business, but we've made a profit every single month. We're reinvesting our money in new equipment. It's great. Yeah, we're doing really well.
Owner John Flanagan is a Canadian who 4 years ago saw business opportunity, namely a combination of federal and state rebates and tax incentives pushing investment in clean energy. For homeowners, that means made in Washington panels pay for themselves in 5 to 7 years, then free, clean power.
It would be difficult with no incentive because to get a large amount of people to purchase solar, it has to be economical, it has to have a return on investment, and they have to see a positive return over the long term.
Bit of a surprise, government handouts are nurturing clean energy in a nation known for its addiction to cheap energy, namely oil and coal.
The President of the United States.
Heat waves, droughts, wildfires, floods, all are now more frequent and more intense.
But it's all part of the president's plan to get tough on climate change. Under Obama, Washington has dished out big bucks for renewables, doubling U.S. energy output from wind, solar, and geothermal. Enough new electricity to power 31 million homes.
And 4 years ago, other countries dominated the clean energy market and the jobs that came with it. And we've begun to change that.
Take solar. U.S. jobs in that sector grew 13% last year compared to 2% in the general economy. The winds of change are even blowing in Texas. A quarter of that state's energy now comes from wind farms. There are still many naysayers who say renewables are too expensive, too unreliable. But this academic, lauded in the U.S. for cutting-edge research into renewables, insists wind and solar can do the job.
Offshore wind can deliver 16 times the energy of all the Atlantic offshore oil.
And Washington is keen on his recent work that found a combination of wind and solar and energy storage systems could keep the largest power grid in North America fully supplied almost all the time, even as cheaply as fossil fuels, if health and environmental costs are factored in.
A lot of people say, hey, you can't have more than 20 or 30% renewable energy on an electric system or it becomes too unstable. But you can run a large electric system where there's a premium on reliability at any of those levels. 30% works fine, 90% of the time works fine, and even 99.9% of the time works fine.
The tricky part, what happens when it's not windy or sunny? Where do you store enough power to meet peak demand? Kempton's answer is driving all over his university campus. Grid-integrated vehicles, he calls them, electric cars and trucks that act as storage when not being driven.
The average Canadian and North American driver uses their car 1 hour per day. So that means you've got a battery, an electric power transfer system that's available 23 hours a day to help make the grid work better. So that's the concept. We use electric cars when they're parked to be storage for the electric system.
Groundbreaking stuff, the kind of innovation Americans are charging ahead with. Because right now, there's dollars to do so.
If more and more American companies are saying can do when it comes to renewables, what about Canadian clean tech companies? Well, some say the prospects aren't so sunny.
Have you washed the panels at all?
Scott Fleener runs a clean energy company on Vancouver Island. These days, clients are harder to come by because his products carry a steeper price tag.
You have to have a little bit of energy conscious clients, such as the hospital here, that want to make a difference, that want to offset greenhouse gases in this case, and make a difference.
The hospital bought these panels thanks to a government incentive, but that incentive expired and Fleener's company shrank from 20 employees to 6.
Our government seems to be focusing a lot on the oil and gas industry, and in order to get this industry going, we do need a little bit of federal or provincial help.
I sort of realized that really the technology wasn't the problem, it was really the policies that we needed to get right.
That's echoed by this engineer turned advocate who says clean tech won't prosper in Canada without a long-term national strategy for going carbon neutral.
We're not making polluters pay the full price of their emissions. We're not putting we're not recognizing or internalizing the full cost of carbon emissions. But if we were to do that, then we'd be able to be getting to a renewable energy future much, much sooner.
The Harper government insists it's serious about reducing carbon emissions. Today, doling out $61 million from an existing fund that companies can access for clean energy projects. But the billion-dollar eco-energy program launched by the Chrétien government, then expanded by the Harper government to stimulate investment in renewables, has nearly run its course with no new money put into wind or solar power. That leaves a patchwork of provincial programs. Ontario, with ambitious targets to phase out coal and invest in made-in-Ontario clean tech, is leading the way.
The science is sort of saying we've got about 40 years to kind of get where we need to go.
Tim Weiss believes the health of the planet demands change now, but also argues it makes good economic sense, noting the U.S. outspends Canada 18-1 per capita on clean tech.
We're seeing a huge trend globally. It's currently, clean energy is about $1 trillion industry right now, and it's forecast to triple in the next 10 years or so. And so it really is a big economic opportunity. And the question is whether Canada wants to be a part of that or not. Do we want to be a leader? Do we want to be a supplier? Do we want to be a manufacturer of these technologies? Or do we want to be on the buying end, I guess?
The United States may end up becoming number one.
That takes us back to Bellingham, where iTech Energy believes it's the little company that can, with plans to export its solar panels to other states.
In our state, it looks great. Many of the states have some sort of incentive program to encourage renewable energy. And I think that the people want it. And that's essentially what is going to drive it in the end, is people want it.
But the price has to be right for consumers to make the shift. In Washington state, it's politicians who are making that happen. Duncan McCue, CBC News, Bellingham, Washington.
If Canadians want to make a shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy, they have quite a way to go. Right now, nearly 80% of Canada's energy comes from oil and natural gas. Just 0.1% comes from wind, tidal, or solar power.